Omer really literally means measurement, and in the Bible it's a biblical measurement, and with all biblical measurements it's pretty personal. So an Omer really is like this much. But today what we do is we talk about the Omer as the counting of the Omer, and it's the time period right after Passover begins, and we're now counting, and we're going to count 7 weeks until we get to the holiday of Shavuot. And that 7-week period is the counting of the Omer. We're counting the days, we're counting the number of weeks. When it was first practiced in ancient Israel, it was a very exciting time because we're counting up to the harvest. And so every day we get closer to the harvest, it's celebration, it's excitement, it's anticipation, until finally, we've counted 7 full weeks. And now we're ready for the holiday of Shavuot, which is the holiday of the harvest and the time of the giving of the Torah. I mean, what could be more exciting? But as time goes on in Jewish history from the biblical period, what starts to happen is terrible things start to happen in that time period. The time period between Passover and between Shavuot is the time when Rabbi Akiva, we're told, loses all of his students. It's 12,000 pairs of upcoming leaders, of Torah scholars, of the best trained, the sharpest minds. They perish suddenly in that time period. There's markers that are put in history for the Inquisitions that go into that time period as well. And in most recent history, Yom HaShoah, the day for remembering the loss, the tremendous loss that occurred in World War II, the slaughter, the murder of 6 million Jews, is put into that time period as well. And what starts to happen is it starts to re-identify itself. And the rabbis are aware of it. So they talk about we should refrain from celebration. Not personal celebration, but community celebration. And that's why you won't find weddings during that time period. You won't find bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs. There isn't a community celebration that occurs during the counting of the Omer or during the Omer. Because really we want to be sensitive to the fact that while there are holidays that are wonderful, exciting things, they're sitting in a world that is filled with challenges. They're sitting in a world that we haven't healed yet and we haven't perfected yet. And so those challenges are constantly going to hit, and we're going to remember them, and we're going to realize the impact of the loss and how history could be different if we weren't constantly encountering these kinds of human challenges. That's the Omer. So while we're still counting, because the Torah told us to count, and we're counting the time period, days and weeks, between the beginning of Passover and ultimately culminating with the holiday of Shavuot, which represents the answer, the giving of the Torah. That ultimately, how is it we're going to heal the world? When we start to realize that we need ethical behavior, when we start to realize that we need acts of loving kindness, when we start to realize that our spirituality really does matter, and that we are going to be held accountable for when we do damage and when we hurt each other. That's the Omer. The Omer is the counting of the days and weeks between the beginning of Passover toward the solution, which is Shavuot, the holiday, the festival of the giving of the Torah. We refrain from public and community celebrations. We recognize how high things get when we don't understand how we need to be treating each other.